Last Sunday for our gospel, Jesus was invited into the house of a Pharisee. And when it was time for dinner, Jesus noticed that everybody was looking for the first place. The place is closer to the host. And Jesus, observing this situation, he offered two teachings. He said, always choose the last seat. And he also added, when you host a banquet yourself, be sure not to invite the important people, but rather invite those who seem to be less relevant and less influential. So Jesus last week was speaking about the importance of choosing the last places. In this present Sunday, Jesus is walking to Jerusalem, and there's a huge crowd behind him. A very large crowd. And Jesus, he's not flattered or seduced by the large crowd. Rather, I think that Jesus is a little skeptic of all these followers. So Jesus is going to turn around and he's going to tell the crowd, many of you follow me, but very few are disciples. So today in this homily, we're going to look over the conditions that Jesus places upon those who want to call themselves disciples. Because we have to make a distinction. Many people that follow Jesus are part of the crowd, but very few are part of the disciples. And I think that this homily can be useful because it's going to be a chance for each one of us to ask ourselves, am I one of the crowd or am I a disciple? So if we look carefully at each condition that he puts on the disciples, you will be able to assess yourself. Where do you stand? The first condition that Jesus puts for those who are going to be his disciples, he says, and this is very startling, he says, you have to hate your mother and your father, your wife, your children, your brothers, and your sisters. That's the first condition to be his disciple. Strange. Because the fourth commandment is to honor your father and your mother, and then Jesus says that if you want to be his disciple, you have to hate your father and your mother. So what is Jesus trying to say with, if you want to be my disciple, not part of the crowd, but really part of the disciple, you have to hate your family? I think the point the Lord is trying to make is, if you truly want to be a disciple, you have to love him above your family. And you will have to choose to obey him even when that hurts your family. And I'm going to give you an example from my life that perhaps can be relatable with you. I remember that many years ago when I was a high schooler and I was starting to grow in my faith, my parents were, I would say, culturally Catholic. And I remember that on a Sunday afternoon, we went as a family to have lunch with another family that was also culturally Catholic, like most families back in my country. And I hadn't gone to Mass that day, and it was getting late. And I knew that my parents weren't going to Mass that day because they weren't making any. So I had to tell them, Mom and Dad, I got to go to Mass. And they said, but this family is hosting us. And I said, I'm sorry, but I got to go to Mass. And I knew it was uncomfortable because it was like, I was telling them, you should be going to Mass too, and to the family that was hosting us too. But that day, I chose to love God above my family. So the first condition to be a disciple is this one. You have to be willing sometimes to be disagreeable with your family to be able to honor God first. And I think this is also very relatable with parents. Because parents sometimes have to make difficult decisions where they have to displease their kids to honor God. So that's the first condition. What's the second one? Jesus also says, if you want to be my disciple, you have to hate yourself too. Not only your family, not only those around you, but you also have to hate yourself. And what Jesus is trying to say is basically the same thing. He's trying to say, you have to love me even above loving yourself. And sometimes you will have to postpone yourself to honor me. And this happens all the time. Let me give you a relatable example. How many times during the week we debate with ourselves about, should I watch TV? Should I watch Netflix? Should I use social media? Or should I go pray? Should I go spend time with the Lord? And many times, unfortunately, we choose to love ourselves above God, seeking our comfort and our pleasure and our commodity, rather than choosing to hate and postpone yourself. So I dare to make this claim. Those who are disciples of higher quality are those who have learned to postpone themselves better and more. And those who look more part of the crowd and less like part of the disciples have not yet learned to postpone themselves, but rather are always choosing to satisfy their needs and the inclinations that they have for immediate gratification. So, the question for you could be, how much do you choose to hate yourself and able to love God? How much are you able to postpone yourself to the second place so you can give God the first place in your life? Are you acting more like one of the crowd or a disciple? The third condition, Jesus says, if you want to be my disciple, carry your cross and follow me. Interesting. He doesn't say, just follow me. He says, carry your cross and follow me. You have a weight to bear in your shoulders or in your back behind me. That's the true disciple, the one who chooses to carry his cross. How do we apply this to our lives? I could say a way that we can apply this is that a true disciple doesn't complain about the hardships and difficulties of his life or her life, but rather willingly embraces those hardships and puts those hardships upon his or her shoulder. How many times, brothers and sisters, we complain about our hardships? How many times do we wish that we didn't have the difficulties that right now we have to face? Perhaps you have health difficulties. Perhaps you have financial difficulties. Perhaps people around you cause you difficulties. Jesus is saying, the true disciple embraces his cross. Rather than complaining about the difficulties, he willingly takes those difficulties upon themselves. Finally, fourth condition to be a disciple, difficult one. He says, those who want to be my disciple, they have to give up on all of their possessions. You have to give up on all your possessions to be a disciple. So what do? Do we empty our pockets today? What does that look like? It's hard to say because some people take it literally and truly give up on having a patrimony of their own. But what about the common faithful? I would say, the common faithful, how do you practice this demand of being a disciple in these terms? I would say a good way to measure yourself upon this, do you tithe? Do you come close to that 10% of giving away what you receive to the church and to those who are in need? Jesus is saying, give up on everything. But the way that we can measure ourselves with this demand is, do you come close to 10%? So, brothers and sisters, 4 conditions to be a disciple. These conditions, hard, difficult to live, difficult to honor. And that's why Jesus, in the gospel today, he says, if you want to be a disciple, be sure to make your calculations and be sure that you will be able to live up to the challenge. You don't want to be like that man who wants to build a tower and doesn't have the money. You don't want to be like that king that faces another king that has twice the amount of troops. So let me ask you this question. Are you willing truly to take upon yourself these demands to be a disciple? Jesus is saying, don't even try if you're not absolutely willing. Because there's a beautiful truth in life, and the truth is this: a yes with doubts in the long run is a no. Let me repeat this. A yes with doubts in the long run is a no. So, brothers and sisters, my final encouragement today is this: are you one of the crowd, or are you a disciple? Are you one of the crowd that follows Jesus like many do? Or are you part of that small group that can truly call themselves as disciples, those who hate their family, those who hate themselves, those who carry their cross, those who give up on all their possessions? Brothers and sisters, in this Holy Mass, let us ask the Lord that He would give us the strength and the determination to move from being those of the crowd to being those who can call themselves disciples.